Hey everybody, we're in the urinary system now, and we're going to jump right into chapter 25, talking about the different excretory systems that we have. So we have 4 different organ systems that help in carrying out excretory processes. And we've talked about 3 of them already. So the integumentary system last semester, the digestive system and respiratory system just this semester. And now we're into the urinary system. So the urinary system is an excretory system. It filters our blood, taking out waste products from the blood plasma and keeping all of the beneficial materials that our body needs. Waste products are produced by a lot of our cells, but those waste products are then going to be filtered from our blood, from the blood plasma, by our kidneys. And in that process, we form a product called urine, which leaves our body through our urinary system. So up here you can see the kidneys. Sorry, this is linked to the picture, so you can just click on it and you can find where I got the picture. And then you see the ureters on each side. Here's your bladder and then the urethra. So the kidneys are what filter the fluids and actually produce the urine. The ureters bring the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. The bladder is a holding sac, and then the bladder releases through the urethra, which then exits the body. So the kidneys have a lot of functions. They function in filtration of materials. So they filter our blood, getting rid of all the waste products and keeping good stuff. They help in forming calcitriol. So they are the final step in synthesizing calcitriol, which is the active form of vitamin D. The first organ to start the synthesis is our skin. So keratinocytes will produce a pre-calcitriol that gets activated when UV radiation hits. Then that pre-calcitriol is going to move to the liver, be converted to another precursor, and then that molecule moves to the kidneys and is converted to calcitriol. The kidneys indirectly measure the amount of oxygen in our blood. So as the kidneys are filtering our blood, if we have low blood levels or low blood oxygen levels, the kidneys will then produce erythropoietin. And erythropoietin is then going to stimulate the blood cell production, red blood cell production in our red bone marrow. And this will increase the amount of oxygen. The kidneys regulate ion levels. So sodium ions, potassium ions, calcium ions, chloride ions, all of these are regulated by our kidneys, and we either are going to increase uptake or release those depending on how much we have. Kidneys help to maintain acid-base balance. So they are one of the 2 organ systems that maintain our acid-base balance. The respiratory system is the other one. And then they also function in regulation of blood pressure. They secrete a chemical called renin in response to low blood pressure. Renin is what activates the angiotensinogen, a precursor to angiotensin. Angiotensin 2 is the active hormone that will actually increase blood pressure. So we're going to actually skip the next couple of sections. We'll come back to them at the end of this chapter, but I want to first focus on the kidneys before we talk about urine and urinalyses. I want to talk about the kidneys. Okay, so kidneys are symmetrical bean-shaped organs. So you can see them here. We have 2 kidneys, one on the right and one on the left side of the abdominal pelvic cavity. They have a concave medial border and a convex lateral border. The concave medial border is known as the hilum. And this is where blood vessels enter and leave, nerves enter, and the ureter leaves the kidney. On the superior aspect of the kidney, we have the adrenal glands sitting. And then the kidneys sit in the posterior region of the abdominal cavity, very close to the vertebral canal. So they sit on each side. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney, and that is because we have the liver right here. So the liver causes the right kidney to have to sit lower. The kidneys are retroperitoneal, which means they don't have a complete peritoneum covering them. They only have the parietal peritoneum, so the outer region, covering one aspect of the kidney. At any given time, the kidneys are going to get to receive approximately 25% of your blood if you're at rest. During activities, during exercise, during stressful situations, then less blood moves to the kidneys because it has to keep us alive. So we have more blood moving to our heart, our nerves, and our muscles. Because the kidneys have such a major function, they have a lot of protective structures surrounding them. So they have the abdominal muscles, they have partial rib coverage, they have like 2 layers of fat that surrounds them, and then they have a renal capsule that keeps pathogens from being able to just get in. Hello. So in this figure, which is a coronal section of the kidney, you're looking at the outer region, which is a lighter color. That's called the cortex. We're inside the capsule, so the cortex here. And then this inner region, which is the medulla. So if you look at the cortex, it's got a lighter color than this medulla region, but there are these areas that are very light that dip into the medulla, and those are called renal columns. So they're extensions of the cortex. The renal columns help to split the medulla into what we call pyramids. So we have these renal pyramids. At the end of these pyramids, we have this area called the renal papilla. The papilla then are going to drain the fluids produced within the renal pyramids into the minor and then the major calyxes. So the renal sinus then is located within the medulla region, and it is organized into 2 different types of calyces, a minor calyx, which are smaller, and there are multiple minor calyxes that drain into the major calyx. The major calyx then can drain or can take all the fluid from multiple minor calyces and drain into the renal pelvis. So the renal pelvis is then formed from the merging of all the major calyces, forms this renal pelvis that then drains into the ureter. And so the kidneys themselves are composed of multiple cells called nephrons. So the nephron is the microscopic functional unit of a kidney, and each kidney has approximately 1 million nephrons. So a nephron in a nutshell contains a renal corpuscle here and a renal tubule down here or out here, okay? So there are 2 types of nephrons, and they are identified based on where they are located within the kidney and how long their loop is. So we have a cortical nephron, which make up about 85% of all of our nephrons. cortical nephrons are located in the cortex, with the loop of Henle, which is this structure here, just dipping barely into the medullary region of the renal pyramids. And then we have the juxtamedullary nephrons, which the nephron itself sits very close to the medulla, and the loop of Henle dips deep into the medulla. So these are called corticomedullary nephrons or juxtamedullary nephrons. So when we look at a nephron, and this is a drawing of a nephron kind of pulled out so that you can kind of see the nephron. It doesn't look that nice normally. Well, as you saw over here, they're very curly and twisty, and you don't get to really see a lot of areas within the nephron. But here we can kind of look, and you can see proximal region, a distal region, and you can see this loop, okay? So this is just a drawn out version of a nephron. We have the vascular, so we have this renal corpuscle, which is up here, which includes a vascular pole where blood moves in from afferent arterioles, and then we also have blood leaving through efferent arterioles. Okay, within the renal corpuscle, within this capsule area, we have a capillary network called the glomerulus. This is where filtration occurs. So lots of fluids are filtered right here, and then reabsorption also occurs here. So fluids are going to come back in. So a lot of fluids come out, and then a bunch will move back in. So afferent drains. Efferent takes away any extra fluid. Okay. So the glomerular capsule is also known as Bowman's capsule, and it surrounds the glomerular capillaries. There is, so this is where filtrate is formed, okay? That's what I'll say for that. And so they have a special filtration membrane that takes care, or that makes sure that fluids can be filtered effectively, but we don't lose too much materials, because remember, about 25% of our blood is being filtered at any given time during rest. So there's 3 different layers of the filtration membrane, and each of those layers is going to keep different materials out. So we have the glomerular capillaries, are a special type of fenestrated capillaries that allow for larger molecules to move through. But then we have a basement membrane that is negatively charged, and so anything negatively charged is not going to be able to move through very effectively. And then we have filtration slits. So here is what the glomerular capillaries filtration membrane looks like. So this is the capillary, and then you can see right here we have these things called podocytes, and then off the podocytes are these little tiny foot-like projections called pedicels. These protect and keep materials from leaving the capillaries. So the fenestrated capillaries only allow materials that are smaller than 70 to 90 nanometers. So blood cells can't move through, but a lot of other materials can. But then the basement membrane has proteoglycans that are negatively charged, and so only things that are about 8 nanometers or smaller than 8 nanometers are going to get through that. So albumin proteins are going to be repelled. And then we have the podocytes. So the podocytes with the pedicels that also protect. And so anything that gets through the basement membrane would then have to go through the third barrier, which only allows certain things to get through, because again, negative charge is going to keep lots of anions from getting through. I'm going to stop here, and I'll start in the next lecture talking about the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Bye.